Ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it big. That's right, Markiplier played our game.
Well, I hate this for some reason. How is something so simplistic and nothing's happening so terrifying to me?
Oh, and Cub Scouts and CJU Games and all of these people. You're probably wondering, how did all of this happen? Well, it all began back in 2012 when Markiplier started taking over the internet.
Oh fuck, what do I do?
I would spend literal hours just laughing and admiring the screaming man through my monitor, and that's when I added another goal to my bucket list. I wanted Markiplier to play my game. I started off creating extremely jank horror games in GameMaker 8. Yeah, you know that engine that's meant to make 2D games, not 3D ones. I'd make and upload game after game, send email after email, hoping that I'd finally get noticed. But there was a problem. I was delusional. Markiplier was a busy man, and why would he spend his time playing literal subpar horror games when there was a plethora of actual good indie horror games coming out at the same time? Fast forward many years, and I came up with a brilliant idea to get Markiplier to play my game. Wait, just hear me out. How about, instead of spamming emails to YouTubers, I actually just made a good game? So I booted up Unity and the grind began. First, I had to come up with a good theme, something that almost everybody can relate to. Turning off the lights and running upstairs. I then chose an aesthetic that'll allow my lazy ass to make a decent looking game. I was off to a great start, but then I remembered something. I don't know how to make 3D models. Oh no, what shall I do? If only there was someone out there that provides thousands of assets at a low price that I can flip into a decent looking game and... Wait, do you hear that? Who's there? Is that who I think it is? So I bought this really nifty tool from Kenny called Acid Forge, not sponsored, that allows even a smooth brain like myself to make fairly good looking models in practically no time. I was back in action, making the horror game that I've always dreamed of. In terms of programming, the game was very simple. I had light switches that switched connected lights on and off, and this manual sleep mechanic to make the player more paranoid.
This next section is dedicated to some interesting design choices that helped enhance the horror factor in the game. It contains major spoilers, so if you'd like to play the game for yourself, please do so now.
Something I noticed in quite a lot of indie horror games is that there's no build-up. It just kind of throws you straight into the horror, and there's one very important aspect that gets lost without a build-up. Familiarity. You see, wandering around in an unknown dark place can be scary at times, but it also triggers a sense of curiosity that can often override that feeling of dread that you're trying to create. I mean, think about it. What made you scared when you turned off a light and had to stumble through your own now dark room? It's because you know the layout of your once safe space. You know every nook and cranny where something could potentially hide. You're familiar with your surroundings, yet you're scared of the unknown in that familiarity. And that's why the tactic here was to keep the first night eventless and only have one minor scare on the second night where the lights turn back on again after you've turned it off.
Because this is just a coming home from work simulator.
This helped the player to become familiar with their surroundings. At the same time, you're also introduced to the staircase with a door at the top. It's dark and you can't see very well, but you can also never access this area. It creates one of those spaces in your home that you were always wary of as a kid, and so much more when you were up alone at night and had to stumble past it in the dark. On the third night, I introduced a noise coming from the staircase. However, it's not clear whether it's breathing, perhaps Dad is snoring again, or scratching. However, walking up the stairs will make the noise stop. This creates a somewhat optional scenario because the player is presented with a choice to either cower in fear and just run straight to his room, or he could try and explore, in which case he'll be greeted with complete silence, which helps build tension because there's a certain expectation that there will be a jump scare. As the player tries to fall asleep on the third night, movement can be heard in the room. This is a minor scare, but it plays off the fact that the player feels vulnerable because of what they experienced earlier on the staircase. Night 4 is where it really ramps up. Upon turning off the light upstairs, the player hears a strange noise coming from the corner of the room where the tree is. The first instinct for players here would be to turn the light back on again, but on night 4 the switches malfunction and refuse to turn on again. The player then has to walk past whatever is hiding in the corner, and it's dark enough to make sure that the player can't quite figure out if it's just a tree or if there's something actually moving. If the player actually paid attention during the menu scene, they'd also be aware that there's a figure standing in the exact same corner that they just walked past. Upon trying to fall asleep, the game toys with a player's subconscious as he's aware that there's a danger just outside of his room. Footsteps can be heard running towards the player, but the moment you open your eyes, it all disappears.
You bitch. Do I see anything in the darkness? No.
Night 5 sees the player cast into the pitch black house with a power outage and only a camera flash to briefly light up the scene. By this point the player is familiar with the layout and is tasked with finding the 3 spirits. These are hidden in areas that would most likely be the spaces you'd be wary of as a kid, and a voice on the radio acts as a hint in case a player gets stuck. One at the bottom of the stairway, one at the strange door at the top, and one in the closet. Night 6 takes a dark turn, and as the player was warned in the previous night, death had visited preemptively. While falling asleep, a figure approaches slowly but surely, and eventually the player is killed. The game builds one last bit of tension here as the player expects a jump scare, but the tension is never released and the game ends.
And I'm dead.
So that still begs a question: how did my game land up in the hands of the one and only Markiplier? I guess the first question we need to ask here is what I did to market my game. Well, the answer is jack diddly nothing. And yet it somehow landed up in the top 3 on the popular page of itch.io. I actually lost the screenshot, so please enjoy this very accurate recreation of what it looked like at the time. Turns out, horror games are actually self-marketing. Yeah. YouTubers love these because it's very easy to react to and generate interesting content. If you post a horror game on itch.io, it's bound to be picked up by a bunch of small YouTubers trying to grow their audience. And from there it just kind of snowballs. And if it's good enough, it'll eventually land up on the popular page where the mainstream YouTubers scout for their weekly fill of horror games. So what's the moral of the story here? Make good games. Okay, thanks, bye.